to speak the same. You want them to speak the same language as you. You want them to talk safety at the same level, language, knowledge, right? That you have in order to put together all these effective safety and health programs. So I have 4 objectives for today's session. One is comprehensive strategies just to mitigate safety risk associated with what we are going through right now, increased holiday seasons workloads, including enhanced protocols for warehouse operations, inventory management, and order fulfillment. So that seems to be, and interestingly enough, these things are enhanced, or this risks and hazards are enhanced during the holiday season, but they're present all year round. So all year round, before the holiday season hits, it's a good time to take a look at what happened the last year during the last holiday season and learn from our mistakes, right? Design and implement effective safety training programs for seasonal workers. And woohoo, I have this big couple of words here: seasonal workers. It is the time of the year when people or companies hire a ton of temp workers, seasonal workers. I think Amazon was sent in their blog that they were ready to hire 120,000 seasonal workers for the holiday season. Walmart, I think it was around 100,000 workers for the season. No, that was Target. I'm sorry. Walmart said that they were trying to just give their own workers overtime because that's the strategy they used last year and it worked well for them. And so we'll talk a little bit about how those strategies may work for you, may not work for you, because when you have a lot of overtime, you have a lot of fatigue and you have a lot of stress, right? So ensuring rapid onboarding while maintaining a strong safety culture. And, you know, every time I say safety culture, it's like a unicorn because it's so hard to find a good way to enhance that feeling of a good safety culture within your organization. So analyze and address specific holiday-related workplace hazards. And we're going to see that one that is huge and will continue to be huge throughout the year is slip, trip, and fall risks. But in this case, for the holidays, is due to increased foot traffic and all the inventory, stock levels, etc., as well as ergonomic concerns. So I've been throwing some words here that are huge that you may be making notes and prioritizing for your organization. So the number one would be seasonal workers. And then I'm going to give you some tips on what to do there, because Kalosha is huge on analyzing on a case-by-case basis how you go about doing seasonal work or dual employment. So many times you supervise these workers, but you don't pay them. And so we'll talk about that. The second thing that should be on your list already is identifying holiday-related workplace hazards, and the big ones starting with slip, trip, and fall, right? And then the last one is create a proactive safety management plan that aligns with OSHA recommendations for busy periods. And you're going to find that here, again, checklists are lifesavers, right? Incorporating regular safety reviews, updated emergency procedures, and enhanced communication strategies. So these are my objectives. I hope that, you know, these are short sessions and we can talk about these things forever because I love safety. You know, you can also request a 30-hour through the center, through UCLA and the Southern Education Research Center, and they'll put together a 30-hour, a 10-hour class for you, for your workforce. I'm bilingual. We'll do it in Spanish. We'll do it in English. And we can talk about safety for 10 or 30 hours. Seems like a lot, but I'll make it fun, I promise. So here we go. Let's start with retail industry, November through January, and we have all of the holidays, right? I skipped Halloween because that's done. I'm a day too late, but we still, today, November 1st, all the way till January, we have this holiday rush, right? And so according to some statistics, and these are approximates because this is a lot of information, but remember, we have different resources for accurate statistics, and I'm going to show you a couple of links for you to do your own homework as well. And you need to do your own homework because you want to get very specific as to what's happening within your type of industry. So these are approximates, but they are taken from the National Retail Association, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and different chambers or California organizations that have statistics, and they're put out for us to give an idea of what's going on, right? So here in California, slip and fall incidents increased 40% because of rainy season. So when we start having rain, out of 10 incidents, 4 of those are going to be related to something to do with the rain. The average cost per claim, and that's a little low, is 20 grand. And the most common locations, store entrances and parking lots. So you need to make sure that if this is something that you have a history with, that this is what's been happening at your stores or your locations where you have foot traffic that during November, January rush, you have more of, that you implement some solutions. And I'm going to talk about it in one moment. But that's for slip, trip, and fall. Strain injuries, to give us an idea of what's going on with strain injuries. 35% increase in back injuries during peak stocking periods. That makes sense. I just visited one of my clients and I saw one new worker bent over completely with straight knees and just forward flexing over a box. And this is thankfully we were doing a walkthrough inspection, because otherwise nobody would have really caught the ergonomic situation going there and how fast she could have gotten hurt. So I approached her and first I observed, and she just kept grabbing stock and put it in the box. So whilst she kept her back bent, complete forward flexion, 90 degree, if you can imagine, straight legs, straight knees, and she kept herself bent in that position, extending her arm backward to reach for the product and put it in the box, because he was faster, just reaching back and keeping herself bent over in that position. And she was way faster that way. And it was big box and deep. And so I asked questions, say, how come such a deep box? And manager says, because these parts have to be shipped in this particular type of box. And the reason why we cannot use anything to grab them other than bare hands is because they are delicate, etc. He explained a lot of things that needed to be in a certain way. But, I approached the employee. She hasn't had any training regarding safe lifting or back injury prevention. She is twisting while holding the stock. So a lot of things wrong. So I went over and just took 5 minutes and explained to her how much damage can occur to the lower back discs and the tissues between each vertebrae when she keeps herself in that position. And I said, you're young, and right now you may not feel it. And then she opened her eyes and she goes, oh, I feel it. I feel it, but I just felt like this is the job, you got to do it, and I'm not going to say anything. And that just, it's huge. It opens your eyes to, wow, okay, so she's already feeling discomfort in her lower back, but it's obvious. Of course, she's going to start feeling discomfort, but it only took that getting close to. So if you can get a tip from this particular conversation is, do your walkthroughs more often. You don't need to do your entire plan, but assign people to have more eyes throughout different departments, because you will see an increase in back injury, especially when you bring in new people or temp workers who have not received the training that your regular workers have. And I will go deeper into that, because it shouldn't happen that way. It shouldn't happen so that you get the influx of temp workers or seasonal workers that start doing a job that they have not been trained for. So if you are doing things right, your new worker orientation program has a subsection for your temp workers, because you already know that you have that influx of more workers for the holiday season. And so you have a list of topics that you're going to be training them on before they set foot on your warehouse or your production floor. That should be the way to do it. Otherwise, you're going to see that 35% increase, 45% increase in repetitive motion injuries. And that also has to do with all the packing and unpacking and shipping, right? And loading and unloading. Remember, the average workers' compensation claim is 30 grand. And they come because of heavy lifting, repetitive motions, which they can be abated, or at least you can get a better handle of them if you do training, if you explain with pictures, if you do videos. So for slip, trip, and fall prevention, having floor maintenance protocols will help. So that may be, or it may look like having a person or two in the shift per shift that do walkarounds to check for floor maintenance so that they're not wet. Because many times, because the rest of the employees are so busy, they don't have the time to go put a wet floor sign. They don't have the time to go clean up a spill. They don't have the time. So, but if you assign a person who's constantly during the holiday season walking those floors, that's a protocol that will help you and will prevent slip, trip, and falls. Take weather-related precautions, such as if during rainy season, make sure that you have anti-slip mats that catch all that mud and crud at the entrance, and that you have also umbrella bags. And that's for visitors and for clients, etc. But when we talk about your own employees, and this is something that I see often, you may have a spoken or verbal policy about footwear requirements, but if it's not in place, it's a written document that you are actually distributing amongst employees where they sign that they recognize that they have to have work boots, and some of them steel toe, some others just needs to be a work boot, a good work boot with good soles. You will not have a handle on being able to say to anyone that you see wearing just a plain old cloth tennis shoe, hey, you're not allowed with those shoes here at the warehouse, or a supervisor or a office workers who just came from the office into your warehouse plant wearing open toe sandals or heeled boots. You cannot have those allowances for anyone. And how do you do this? By distributing the information first, because otherwise you're going to feel you're picking on them, right? So distribute the information first, they sign, they know, and then you start asking questions. Same client, one of the workers saw me walking through with the manager, with the human resources and safety and maintenance, because we do it together. He goes, hey, I had a question. I need to buy new boots, but I wanted this really cool Vans work boot that I found online, and I don't know if they're allowed. So they were advertised as work boots, but then when I looked at the actual ASTM numbers and the ANSI requirements for that particular boot, those were not allowed on that warehouse. But see, it prompted that back and forth conversation, and it is all because they do have a policy for proper footwear. So that should be a to-do for you. Do I have a policy for proper footwear requirements? Sometimes it's just verbal. That doesn't work the same. Warning sign placement, housekeeping standards. Of course, housekeeping standards is part of what you constantly distribute and talk about, clean and orderly workstations, making sure people do not keep up open top drinks or bottles, because those very easily will spill, and they will also be contaminated with whatever they're working with. Those are housekeeping standards, things that you have included in your own policy for your floors, for your production areas, for your departments. So a little bit of what I was talking about over here, but in pictures, and also remembering that because parking lots are a huge deal, and then you get into this gray area, whether or not they had been clocked in, whether or not, they were leaving. It's one of those things that your workers' compensation and your incident investigation the supervisor doing the incident investigation are going to go back and forth into time, when it happened, what was the employee doing, to determine whether or not a slip, trip, and fall in one of your parking lots is work related. And then who's the owner of the building? That also matters. A lot of things, so not just the OSHA workers' compensation issues here, but also third-party liability. If there are uneven surfaces in your parking lot, fix them. Have that done right away, especially before the rainy season occurs. If your parking lots are dangerous, where people are racing, there's no signage, the actual traffic directions are not clear, and you have the issue where people are almost being suffering incidents because of traffic, also take a look at that, redesign, paint your parking lots with clear signage, etc. Now, in regards to repetitive motion injury and back injury prevention, I highly encourage you to have a written program or policy. Now, this is something a lot of you don't have. It's all just talked about, or you have a handout, or you have training, but there's no formal policy, and that's very common. So a lot of insurances will not insure you unless you have a program. So if that's the case, or you've seen this, or you haven't even seen if you have a policy, please send us a request. We can go back into we can go in your facility organization, discuss it, put a program together for you, put training together for you. Remember, Cal OSHA requires these things. I put here the sections. So in regards to walking, working surfaces, we have Cal OSHA section 3272, and you can go ahead and Google it and find out, oh yeah, we're required to have, clear aisles and passageways that are free of obstructions. If there's a spill, we pick it up immediately after it was detected. And for repetitive motion and back injury prevention, we do have a section 5110. And that's an interesting standard because a lot of us do not have a policy in place because there's 4 flags that need to come up for us to be forced by this section to have a program. My advice is have a program, something proactive, something simple, that allows you to hit those issues that you have, such as, the greater influx of new staff during the holiday season, and training them. Don't rely on the training they come with from the temp agency. So I get this a lot from supervisors because supervisors are very busy people and they always tell me, hey, I don't have time for this. And that's the reason why I hire them from a temp agency, because they come with training. Yes, but when you look at Cal OSHA's policies and procedures, which I'll show you over here in a moment, I'll get to it in a moment. When you look at that, they will really look into the dual employment issue. And one of those is who's responsible for training. And the person responsible for training is the person that is providing the supervision for that worker. It doesn't matter that you don't pay them or they are not on your payroll. If you supervise and control the work they're doing, you have to train them, but not provide general training, but specific to what they're doing. So it has to be specific to the product they're handling, to the tasks they're doing. So in the case of the lady that I just told you, she was completely bent forward, 90-degree angle for her back, and just extending her arm back to quickly reach for stock. It really takes having those new workers and telling them, this is the task, these are the boxes, this is what is needed, but your back is going to be hurt if you do this. So this is the way we're going to do it. And so what I suggested is that they use those incline tables, right? So that the box is tilted. And the box needed to be tilted in order to help access the bottom of the box to place all this product. Nevertheless, it does bring the issue where if the product is going to be heavy and scrape the parts, then product will be returned. So you have to look into the task, how you're going to modify it for the safety of the workers so they are not bent forward in full forward flexion, and do it according to what you need so that they don't get hurt. Because, you have to really get into how much I need to have in profits to cover for all of these injuries and illnesses that I'm having always at the end of the year because of holiday season. And we'll talk about how to calculate that, how to look at those numbers with a wonderful link to Safety Pays by OSHA. I'll give you that info in a second. This is just a simple sample of something I put together for workers who are having to lift heavy, always use machinery and equipment first. This is what we have for this particular task, etc. Then planning the lift, talking about single lift and team lifts and steps for each of those. That's important, should be included in your policy or program. I have a client who developed videos. I love videos, guys. Videos that are simply 3-minute video where it shows how to lift something or how to put something in a box the correct way will do a lot, because it's 3 minutes that this new worker, this new seasonal worker looks at and says, oh, okay, so I'm going to be putting this parts in this box, but I shouldn't do it like this. I should go to that machine, to that station, and do it in this form. Perfect. It's visual. It's quick learning. It's 3 minutes, very little explanation. And they receive training that's specific to that task, to that particular task. So make sure some of the solutions that I have for you, install adjustable workstations, provide anti-fatigue mats, preferably those without cracks and holes or that are bent all the way to the top. Anti-fatigue mats will become a trip and fall hazard if they are not in good condition. Use powered assist devices, lift tables, those work amazing. And also they help rotate stock or keep it at a certain height, etc. Implement mandatory stretch breaks. I like those plants when I visit them, and they have stand-up stations with visual pictures of the stretch exercises that they should do and how often. Some of my clients even have alarms that go off for the workers to stretch and that get into work. So a few minutes of stretching. And one of the things that I like there is adding that walk. A walk will do wonders for your workers' joints. So just a nice brisk walk. I tell them, if you have a very active job, taking a passive break is good. But if you are very passive during your day, taking a more active break will really do wonders for you. So in walking is one of the best exercises ever. So implementing a walk for workers every time they're supposed to get back to their stations. I'm a big advocate of that, even more so than stretching. If you can do both, I know that is time that needs to be paid for workers, but sometimes, mind you, if you tell the workers and educate them in the health benefits of these brisk 2-minute walks or the stretch programs that you have in place, they will do it. They don't care if they get paid or not. They'll get there early, and instead of sleeping in the break room while the bell goes off or when it's time to start, they will take a walk and they will warm up to have their bodies ready. But that's because there's education behind that attitude. It's a little bit like when you went to the dentist and you refused to floss for so many years, but then you get this hygienist that explains to you that, she shows you pictures of rotten teeth and gums that are bleeding and swollen and how the teeth are falling off. And then she explains, how floss helps. And then she goes over and teaches you how to go into the very close gum, between the gum and the tooth, and how to really do kind of like an arch motion and go back down, and then same area but the other side of the tooth. And then she takes her time and she explains to you it's not just putting the floss this quickly, it's really going to the perimeter of your tooth and getting them clean this way. And after she educates, shows you pictures, etc., you're like, oh, I'm doing this. And then she said to me, you don't have to do it 3 times a day. I'm happy if you do it 1 time a day. Any time of the day will work. And I saw a difference, and 1 time a day is doable versus 3 times a day. So education changed my attitude, changed the action, changed what I was doing for my own health, because my brain works that way. If I see the benefit visually, if I'm trained for it, I'm educated about it, I'll do it because I want to stay healthy. So I also invite you to take a look at that Kalosha 5110 repetitive motion injuries. It talks about if you have 2 workers within a 12-month period that suffer the same type of repetitive motion or strain, ergonomic type of injury to the musculoskeletal system, then you have that first red flag coming up. Then 50% or more of that damage has to be work-related. So that's the second flag. And then the third one is within that 12-month period. And the fourth one is that a doctor diagnoses this injury as a musculoskeletal disease, a repetitive motion, etc. Then boom, you have to have implementation of a written program to prevent RMIs and safe lifting and back injury prevention. That's what the standard says. I say do not wait till you have the 2 workers with the same diagnosis, with the same type of job in a 12-month period. Be more proactive. Start now. There is a tool here. This is the actual link for this tool. It's a wonderful tool because it'll help you put together your plan. I do have a sample program. You can request it. The program is based on the OSHA e-tool for ergonomics, and I love the OSHA e-tool. Mind you, CalOSHA has some great e-tools, but they do not have one for ergonomics. So that's why I use the federal OSHA site for this particular one. And let me show you what I am talking about. So I think everyone can see. Let me see, stop share here. And now I'm going to share the ergonomics from CalOSHA. Yes. So look at how beautifully, and this is more of what I was talking about with that particular worker that I saw. She was bent over precisely how this picture shows here. That's full forward flexion. Can you see, everyone? It says before. So the pinching that it's going on at the very small of the back causes tremendous pressure that goes beyond what NIOSH and the Centers for Disease Control have calculated in a formula that tells you what is safe for your back to stand or handle during work. Full forward flexion while handling stock of any kind, especially in this type of position, will start tearing the outer ring of the discs, which are the softer tissue between or sandwiched between your vertebrae. And when you explain it, I even bring my models to the classes so that workers can see the vertebrae, the disc between the vertebrae, and how you have that particular structure in the small of your back and how damaged it'll be if you continue doing this motion. And then, solutions such as inclining and using devices to help them keep their back neutral. And we don't say straight because if you had an X-ray machine or X-ray vision, you could see that the spine is not up and down straight. It's not a line. It actually has curves. It goes forward slightly around the neck portion, and then it goes back slightly around the upper thoracic, and then it goes forward all around your lower back, which is kind of like forward where your belly is at, and then again backward towards the tailbone. So it really is like an S shape that goes in curves in an S pattern. And so we want to keep this neutral S shape pattern while we work. And we make this S-shaped pattern disappear if we do a lot of this forward flexion. So this really helps safety directors and the people putting together policies, because the solutions, it goes through identifying problems, solutions to control, training and assistance, and standards and enforcement, etc. So it also shows you the hierarchy of controls by NIOSH, what's more effective, right? So first, can we absolutely get rid of this activity? So throughout this entire session, guys, that's the first thing we asked. During this holiday season and the influx of new seasonal workers or more inventory and all the problems that come with the augmented demand for a product or services during the holiday season, are there parts of what we're doing that we can eliminate if they are causing harm or having certain hazards or risks for workers? Can we completely eliminate this activity? And so that should be where you should start, right? Elimination of that type of activity, or bringing in machinery and equipment to do it instead of having a worker risk their back, etc. Okay, so and this is huge, especially during the holiday season, issues of strains, sprains, etc. Let me keep going. Like I said, it is hard to go fast. Is everyone looking at my PowerPoint again? And then an example of the Texas Social Library for handouts and training. Yeah? Okay, so remember to comment in the chat so that I know I'm just not talking to myself, right? Right. Texas has a huge library. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, you're awesome. So the library has bilingual handouts, and they may have handouts in other languages besides just Spanish, as well as the federal OSHA site. So this is, for example, for healthcare industry to implement a good back safety program that includes, first of all, let's assess the patient. What's wrong with this patient? And then take a look at, and when we say what's wrong, we're looking at this from the employee side to see how can I help my back to stay safe. This is a back injury prevention handout for healthcare. Assessing the patient is huge. Are they cognizant? Can they walk? Can they do certain things for themselves, right? And then what kind of equipment do I need? And then what are the safe work practices to do this lift or to help this patient? And then do I need a lift team or can I do it myself? And then the actual comprehensive training. And once this is done, you have the tools to say, oh, you got hurt. Oh, you weren't using your assisting device. Oh, you needed a lifting, but you couldn't call your coworker because it would take you more time and you were rushed and you decided to just wing it. So once the training, once the program is in writing, once you've distributed the information, you can also disciplined workers. It's kind of like the stick and the carrot. You recognize workers who work safely, but you also discipline workers who do not work safely. But in order to discipline, you must have, first and foremost, distributed the information and train them in what you want them to follow. Very good. Very, very good. So material handling incidents also during the holiday season, 50% increase in forklift accidents. This is huge. Although forklift accidents are quite common, we do see an increase during the holiday season, and that is quite sad. Oh, yes, yes, I will share a copy of the PowerPoint so that you can actually go ahead and talk to others that need this information. So thanks for asking about that. 30% increase in pallet jack injuries. Mind you, pallet jacks, especially manual pallet jacks, a lot of safety directors and supervisors feel like, hey, have you handled or used a pallet jack before? And they go, yeah, I have. Okay, then that's perfect. Just go ahead and move this from here to there. And the problem is that we do not have an actual system to check for what equipment they were trained on, who trained them, because it should all be done by your own people. It has to be in-house. This is what we call an industrial truck in-house program. A lot of you depend on outside resources, outside companies to come and do your every 3-year recertification training. And that's okay. The problem with that is, number one, they don't know your specific facility. You have to do a hands-on training. And yes, they will do it at your facility, but they're not familiar with what's really going on at your plant or at your warehouse or at your distribution center. So take the time and the money to send your supervisors, maybe 2 or 3 that volunteer, and hopefully will volunteer because they love their job, right? To become your trainers. So send them to a train the trainer program. They're expensive, they're more expensive, but they'll come back with the training materials, with the handouts, and with the skills to do their own in-house recertification program, which will include the forklifts, if you have 2 or 3 types, turret trucks, if you have 2 or 3 types or models, pallet jacks, if you have manual ones or hydraulics, whatever you have, they'll have a checklist and they will certify that their workers can operate each of these different types of models and industrial trucks, right? So even a manual one, which is not included in your industrial power truck program, even a manual pallet jack should have basic checklist training, because one of the things is, do you pull, do you push? Do you wear safety shoes with it, or can we use regular tennis shoes while working with manual pallet jacks, etc.? Those things need to be talked about during a training session. Remember, the average claim cost is $42,000, and the primary cause is because of those rushed operations and inexperienced seasonal workers. Do not rely on the fact that they were working driving a forklift in their previous place of employment. You have to train them and do an actual hands-on certification at your plant, at your floor. So storage-related accidents, 25% increase of falling object incidents, 60% increase in storage-related injuries, average cost, 15 grand, most common cause improper stacking and overcrowded storage. And that makes sense, right? So make sure that you have maximum floor loads posted, storage limited by rated capacity. Make sure that people are not overcrowding your storage spaces and then impeding clearance required from sprinklers 18 inches, right, to the last top of any box or anything that you are storing to the actual sprinkler, and proper load distribution so that you protect it against collapse. And this is huge because the actual requirement in the regulation is protect against collapse. So that means that if you have this piles of boxes that are slightly tilting, you're already in violation of a safety standard. That's what it means. And then when you talk to the safety person, the manager there, and you have him take a look at those piles, he'll say, well, you know, that sometimes happens. Yeah, but that's going to tilt. The moment they try to move it, it's going to tilt, fall, spill over, and hurt someone. Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I've told them not to do this, and it comes from packaging. You know, the packagers have to do this and that, but they don't do it because sometimes they're in a rush. And then you start getting to the root cause, right? And so if you can investigate that as a near miss because you have this file that looks a little crooked, that is a violation of a safety standard, section 3276, because it's not protected against collapse, you can actually get something to happen because that discussion took place, pictures took place. The pictures were brought to the training session. This is what we do not want. This is how we prevent it. And if you see this, you take a picture, you send it to your supervisor, you do not move this load. Now we are avoiding this average cost per incident number. Poster needs to be there. That's why I wanted to show you that poster. More on Black Friday, storage optimization, staging areas. Because a lot of the times when we have over a lot more inventory during the holiday seasons, our staging areas get crowded and we have a lot more slip, trip, and fall. And then we do not do good traffic flow planning. And then what are the emergency protocols? If you are violating a lot of those exit routes, exit signs, and putting or storing items, product, etc., in front of emergency eye washes, emergency equipment such as portable fire extinguisher, electrical panels, and electrical emergency shut-off buttons. All of those I see on an everyday basis, but more so during the holiday season because now you have a lot more stuff to deal with, a lot more stock, a lot more demand, a lot more product. So you use, for example, the 3-foot distance between your electrical panels, you use it as a place to put stuff, woohoo, we have this extra little space. We're going to just pile up all these boxes or cardboard, not knowing that that's a huge fire hazard. And if anything were to happen, you need to have access to that electrical panel, electrical equipment. You're out of luck because there's stored items there. So that's a huge safety violation by OSHA. Cal OSHA would have a field trip if all of these things are happening. Be especially careful with deliveries because of this influx on parts and product that you need for you to produce during the holiday season, you will have a lot of deliveries that are put or set down or staged in the wrong areas. Wherever you are doing this, make sure that it is not blocking exit routes or emergency equipment. So install temporary barrier systems. Do something that is visual for workers so that they are able to obey those barriers. Use mobile storage racks. Implement one-way traffic patterns if you have to during the holiday season and train workers in this. Deploy portable heating, cooling systems if the issues are cold stress or heat illness, depending on your processes. For example, talking about heat illness and you're thinking, but it's cooling down, it's fall. Well, there's some companies that do not get a break because even during the winter, because of that added demand for their product, for example, breweries will always have areas where heat exposure comes from tanks and cellars and fermentation areas because of the hot steam and the piping. And workers are working, maybe 15 feet from it, and they're working with aprons and rubber boots, etc. So cooling system need to be in place year round, but especially during the holidays because of higher demand for their product. And so we have Cal OSHA 3650 for industrial trucks requirements. We also have the new section for Cal OSHA heat illness prevention 3396 that you can also Google. And this picture, I put it here. It's from a vendor. And remember, I do not sponsor any of the vendors or products that we put up on my slide show. And I've told you guys this before. The reason is because that does not mean that I've personally tested their products. This is for your information, for you to have options to look at and to find solutions to the things that you are, or the hazards and the risks that are present at your facilities. So this one, I found this blog and I was doing this research this week and I love this blog. Okay, hold on a second. So there's a couple of things here. So for this one, let me see if it goes there. If it doesn't go there, no, it didn't go there. Okay, well, the link is there, but basically is a company that helps with special portable stack racks. And so it has different configurations and it will keep your warehouse more organized and tidy. So that's a good link and a good company to look at. This is a picture that I took, and it has to do with during the holiday season, you get more demand, and then you get workers who I say they're doing shenanigans, and I'd say shenanigans because they know better or they don't know better because you didn't train them. And that's sometimes the answer to this. So look at this first picture. He's using a small step stool that is not stable to reach the very top boxes of product. And so the key here is there's several things going on here, and it all goes ding, 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 ding in my head. Wow, okay, so obviously this is an area where they are putting a lot of their product that they usually do not do. And this is what happens in the holiday season. You start putting product and staging a lot of this product, etc., in areas where you usually don't do it. And so workers that need to be accessing this product, they do it however they can if you haven't done training or planning. This is an injury waiting to happen because the moment he gets to the top of that stool, that thing is going to tip, and there it goes, worker, box, product, and everything to the floor. And that would be a costly injury because that could be a knee, a back, a neck, and a broken ankle. What do you know? And then it's surgeries, and then it's partial or total disability, etc. And these are just things that because you're lucky, nothing happens. But the moment you stop being lucky, something will happen. So a better way of doing this, if you have to have product on areas that are adequate for storage, but have not been storage areas before, only for the holiday season, then you have to plan on how workers are going to retrieve them. And number one is you have to give them the equipment they need. So a stair ladder would be better, or a podium type ladder for this type of reaching would be so much better. You ban those little stool steps from them. You do not allow them to use them for this purpose, right? And then on the other picture, you also see one of those stair ladders being accessing one of those areas where the ceiling is going to represent a hazard. They're going to get bumped in the head. So it is too tall. That ladder is not adequate for the work being done. So in all of this happens only if you are pre-planning and if you are inspecting and walking the floor, right? During the holiday season, a lot of product lays around and pallet jacks are left everywhere instead of taken to the area where they are supposed to be parked. So that's something that needs to be distributed as a big no-no so that safety violations don't take place. So pre-plan, make a checklist of the issues that you saw last holiday season. So this is just another example. Pallet jacks that are left by entrances or everywhere that represent a trip hazard, because that's how you see then the broken ankle, the surgery, etc. Because someone left a pallet jack and someone tripped with the forks. Material handling, then we have pallet jack safety, do training for that specific to what they use. Forklift operations have an in-house program. Cart management, depending on the little carts that you use, also have something in writing that says that people are inspecting them so that they look at the wheels. Does it has locking casters? Do they lubricate them so that these carts are also safe when they're pushing and pulling product? And of course, ladder safety is huge. Ladder safety comes in the shape of a required 7-step training program for workers per Cal OSHA 3272. And there's a beautiful e-tool for this purpose. So there's more resources here as to devices that you can implement. So this is another one that you can take a look at: safety barriers for warehouse, industrial, other facility, etc. So I see that we're running out of time, and this is in part good and bad because it gives us more to talk about next time. I wanted to make emphasis today on your seasonal workers. Make sure you implement a new worker orientation program, just like the slide is saying. And for the new worker orientation program, take a look at whether or not you have a dual employer situation. If you do, that means you're supervising workers that you do not have on your payroll. If that's the answer, then you have the responsibility to provide training and to keep them safe while they're working for you. So no violations, no safety violations while they are on your premises. Make sure you put together a checklist that is a new employee safety orientation checklist where you put a brief number of topics that are absolutely a must for these workers who are seasonal or temporary. So in this case, a code of safe practices and enforcement of policies, your IIPP, so that they know what the IPP is. I just put together a 10-minute video explaining the IIPP for 2 of my clients. So if you don't have that, you have to have it. So I put together the IPP, we reviewed it, and then we went ahead and recorded a session, 10-minute video that explains what the IIPP is. That way you can sit that new worker to watch that video, to take a look at. I actually included the code of safe practices in that video. That's a fabulous, I love videos because if they're short, to the point, and in their language, and they're not boring, people would pay attention to them. Ergonomics. So for that, break it down in what does that mean? Is that back injury prevention? Is that single lifts or team lifts? Whatever that means, or repetitive motion prevention. Explain there precisely what that new employee need to be trained on, depending on your operations. Hazard communication has to do with chemicals. Emergency procedures and first aid has to do with how do they call, when do they call 911? Are they allowed to use their cell phone? Sometimes because you tell them not, you don't want to see them with their cell phone, they don't use it, and they are afraid of even calling 911. No, you tell them if it's needed, you will not be banned from using your cell phone to call 911 whenever needed. And after, if you're in danger, you feel in danger, call 911 and report it to your supervisor. Always ask for help. You have to have a procedure. You don't have to leave it to them to figure it out. These new workers, seasonal workers, temp workers, need to have a checklist of things that they must know before they step foot in your facility or before they start working for you. Okay, so orientation requirements, like I said, just an example that I gave you guys, and making sure you have a mentorship program. I love, 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 love. I don't know how many times I have to say I love mentorship programs, because then a worker can be criticized on how they're performing, but it's very positive because this mentor has the freedom to correct and criticize the work. And I say criticize just to drive the point today, but the truth is it's just helping the worker, and the worker doesn't feel criticized or that he's being looked under the lens while he's a new worker. He doesn't, because he came to your workplace knowing that he would be under mentorship, and so he sees this guy telling him what to do and how to do and what not to do as his mentor. So it's a wonderful way to label these programs and to explain, so that workers do not get into this violation of safety standards at the workplace. So create virtual reality training modules or videos or pictorial guides, 4 pictures on the steps on how to do something. And, that counts for specific training. So it doesn't have to be this very burdensome 3 hours, 5 days, a whole week of training for your new workers or your seasonal workers. It can be a series of 2-3 videos with 3 handouts with pictures, and then, a brief meeting with the supervisor. Boom, he's ready to work in that station. And that could be a 2-hour work orientation, or it could be a full day, depending on what they're doing. But don't let them start unless they've gone through that new worker safety orientation. Remember, they're yours. Even though you don't pay them, their safety, you are responsible for their safety if you're supervising their work. And even for those that you are not supervising, and this is the other thing, maybe sometimes you are bringing in a crew with their own supervisor, and he's in charge of making sure that project takes place, and he's supervising them. You don't pay him. You just outsource the project. You're paying for that project. Well, while they're on your premises, if you did not communicate clearly about, hazard communication and emergency procedures and lockout, tagout, etc., whatever the project is all about, you may be under the lens, under the multi-employer worksite, the California OSHA policies and procedures as well. So for Northern California, remember, there's an increase on slip, trip, and fall during rainy season. For Southern California, we do have a lot of weather-related incidents that have to do with heat illness, even in the fall. So I created a high heat procedure cheat sheet for supervisors. All of my clients got this because for high heat procedures, it's very easy for California to get 95 degrees and above. And so they need to know what to do because there's an extra requirement. Although the trigger temperature is 80 degrees for outdoor places of employment and 82 degrees for indoor places of employment, there's an extra requirement whenever the heat is above 95 degrees outdoor. So they need to know. And I put together some, it's like a tailgate for them, and it helps you comply with the regulations. So very, very good. If you don't have any of these, please send us an email. We'll be happy to oblige. After all, it's safety information, and we need to pay attention to these things. So extra sections of the law that you want to take a look at, and issues that you also want to take a look at. If it doesn't look clean and orderly, if it looks like it's blocking your emergency equipment, it's a safety violation, right? So for all of you handling chemicals, labels need to be legible. Chemicals that you are using also, you need to have a safety data sheet book that workers know how to use. Even if it's something that is electronic use, they need to know how to use it. And spill kits are huge. Most of you have them near your chemicals, but workers do not know how to use them. So that's what I found in my practice, that you do have spill kits and they're dusty, old, and in a corner, and workers do not know how to use them. So make sure that in regards to emergency procedures, you update your contact list. Many times you take a look at those bulletin boards with emergency information, and there's numbers there of people that don't work for your company anymore, right? So make sure you take a look at this slide as well and review, and make sure your evacuation routes are all clear, free of obstructions. You have good medical emergency protocols and good communication systems. So even if there's a language barrier, no one is left behind. So the National Safety Council has these injury facts. I want you to visit their site, and on their drop-down menu, I want you to be able to take a look at the workers' compensation costs per the safety topic or the types of injuries that you're having at your facility, because these are the most current statistics, and I really like this site. For example, according to the NCCI data, the most costly lost time workers' compensation claim by cost of injury results from what? Driving a company vehicle, right? That is an average of 89 grand per workers' compensation claim between 2020 and 2021. The only other causes with above average costs were burns, falls or slips, and caught in between equipment. Those are quite costly. So slip, trip, and fall, 50 grand. Caught between equipment, also 50 grand. Burns, 52 grand. So I really want you and invite you to do that. And I only have enough time to play this video. I want you to take a look at the OSHA tool. And Rachel, if you wouldn't mind, just to kind of ending up with this quick video on does safety pay? It'll drive the point about finding more about your facility and whether or not the efforts that you put together after today's talk will pay. Okay, so return on investment.
Safety and health are important aspects of.
Can you hear it okay?
Oh, we don't see the video.
For your operation.
I may fail at this effort.
Oh, no worries. No worries. We can. The good thing is I gave you guys the actual link. So let me share this with you real quick. So here, if you go to the OSHA website, there's an OSHA Safety Pays program. Mind you, it is OSHA, federal government. Sometimes the tool doesn't work. So you have to wait a day or two, because it has happened to me where I'm in the middle of a presentation. I want to make sure that it works and it's not working. But the Safety Pays tool allows you to, you need to know some of your numbers so that you can compare your rate to other rates of comparably sized employers, companies in your own type of industry, right? So this is the video I want you to watch. So now you have this link, and I'll leave it at that. Make sure that you watch her in your own time. right? And let me see. If it does it, it'll be great. If it doesn't. Yeah, no, for some reason it's not playing. In any case, please go ahead and take that link. I just put it in the chat and make sure that you watch that video. And the last thing that you should also be watching is OSHA holiday season video. There's 9 tips that OSHA gave you for holiday season. It's right here. I love this page that they created. So it's basically all the topics that I discussed with you today: ergonomics, forklift safety, trucking industry, safe driving, some tips for safe driving, because a lot of the delivery issues. Remember that the most costly type of workers' comp injury is driving a company vehicle. Well, that's all your delivery guides. So take a look at this. Retail sales, and for all workplaces, what type of training, worker rights, temporary seasonal worker, workplace stress, and young workers. Guys, for workplace stress, this is huge. This is mental health is an issue during the holidays as well. So I invite you to take a look at how you can help workers. There's a ton of information on the Cal OSHA website and on the federal OSHA site for workplace stress. And it relates to how to find out some of the signs and symptoms in coworkers and how to help them. And also some hotlines, anonymous lines, so that people get help. Some of my clients have amazing programs in place where they either have a employee assistance program, and the employee assistance program allows them to make a call, and all the information is confidential. A lot of the times they're chaplains that talk to them, and they're able to share and help them through crisis of stress. And during the holidays, we have a lot of family and financial, and so they're beautiful holidays, but at the same time they bring added stress, not just workplace stress because of the added inventory and demand for a product or services, but aside from that, there's stress that our workers are undergoing because of family, financial, and other matters. So this is huge. I invite you to take a look at all the wonderful resources in this link. I will put it in the chat as well. And I appreciate your time today. I hope we were able to give you some good information. I will send you my slide deck, and I'll see you next month. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Alba. Any final questions? I think so Rosa, Alba said we will be distributing a copy of the PowerPoint slides after this, and you will be receiving a invitation to complete a course evaluation, which we greatly appreciate and use to refine and update our programming going forward. So
Absolutely.
yeah. It's been wonderful having you all here today. And I will say that I'm filling in today for Lisbeth Diaz, who's doing her civic duty and serving on a jury this week. And we have a new continuing education program director who's going to be taking over here at the Southern California ERC on Monday. Her name is Veronica Ponce de Leon, and we're very excited to have her. So you'll probably be seeing her at the session next month. Thank you all for joining us.
And we'll see you next month. Thank you, Rachel. We appreciate your time. Thank you for everything today, and we'll talk soon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rachel. Good luck with everything until next time. Thanks.
Yep. See you soon.
Bye.